followers and subscribers, welcome to my channel, and for those who are new, my name is Dr. Film, and if you love movies as much as I do, then you've come to the right place. For this review, I shall be taking a look at a movie that has ended a 20-year franchise since 2000, and that is known as Dark Phoenix. Written and directed by Simon Kinberg, the same writer who wrote for X-Men The Last Stand and Fantastic Four, released in 2015. Well, isn't that a good sign? This is a 12th installment in the X-Men series, and set after the events of X-Men Apocalypse. Our stars for this film are Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Sophie Turner, and newcomer Jessica Chastain. The premise is about Jean Grey evolving into a more powerful mutant after a mission has gone terribly wrong, and she poses as a threat to the X-Men and mutants alike. Warning, spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the film. Fassbender and McAvoy did a fairly good job, as they did in their previous X-Men films, and you don't get worn out from their interactions. You're always sorry, Charles, and there's always a speech, but nobody cares anymore. As for Sophie Turner's performance, I thought she did a great job, and the way she transitioned into different kinds of emotions, such as sadness, anger, or depression, you'd feel sympathy towards her, and you want this nightmare to end. And when she transforms into the Phoenix, trust me, you don't want to mess with her. Her silent expression and the way she displays her powers towards the X-Men makes her a threatening opponent. As for the rest of the X-Men characters, they were bland. Honestly, I can't recall a good thing about one of the X-Men characters. It felt like they were just there for the ride. And I thought Scott Summers' relationship with Jean Grey was okay, really, nothing special. And Quicksilver barely has screen time in this film. And he hasn't told Eric that he is his son. It's like the filmmakers had no clue what to do with him, which is a big letdown. And the way Mystique was handled in this film was poorly done. And I'm not even kidding, guys. She plays the same character as we know from Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and now this. And what sucks is when she died, I felt no emotional attachment to her. Her death would have been more impactful if the trailer hadn't revealed it. And speaking of returning characters, what happened to the other characters from Apocalypse? You know, like Jubilee, Moira, Stryker, or even Psylocke. In fact, the movie behaves in a weird way that tries to make us think that the events that took place in Apocalypse never happened. I don't recall one small reference, not even one! Alright, now let's talk about the story. Now, the narrative felt basic and bland, and honestly, I didn't feel any tension of whether or not the X-Men are going to survive at the end. Now, here are my problems that I had with the story that either irritated me or left me with some questions. Number 1, the timeline. You see, this particular narrative takes place in 1992, and you might be thinking, what's the problem? Let me explain. The first original X-Men was founded in 1962. In Days of Future Past, when Logan goes back in time to warn Xavier, it took place in 1973. In X-Men Apocalypse, after the events of 1973, it took place in 1983. What is up with these decade jumps? And this would also make Hank, Eric, Raven, and Charles at least in their late 50s or 60s. And they still look young! Okay, I'm convinced that this is a clear sign of Fox not giving a crap at all. Number 2, what is up with the villains? You see, Jessica Chastain plays as Smith, also known as Vuk of the alien Dabari race. I'm not even kidding, that's a real name. Vuk. V-U-K. And what do you need to know about them? Oh, just that they're from space, they're aliens, and they want to use the cosmic force that is inside of Jean and reshape the Earth. And they can also shapeshift. That's it! That's their only purpose for them! Smith doesn't have a personality, and whenever she comes in on screen, she becomes like a distraction. And I didn't approve of her of being Jean's influencer, because we already had that in X-Men The Last Stand, with Magneto as Jean's influencer. Number 3! The pacing feels off. You see, there are some scenes that are supposed to have a heartfelt moment or a character moment. And honestly, it felt like it was rushed. And I think the film should have been a lot longer than just 1 hour and 54 minutes. Because it would have given a complete character arc for Jean and provided some development for the X-Men characters. Overall, the story is in complete turmoil. Now let's get to the good parts, such as the action. The action was quite terrific, especially the opening space sequence. It was great to see the X-Men working together, including Charles. How awesome it was to see Quicksilver save the astronauts so fast. And it led to a pretty epic moment where Jean Grey is united with the cosmic force. On the other hand, there was a scene where Eric and Jean was fighting over a helicopter on an island. At first, it was intense and shocking to see how powerful Jean really was. And it does have Eric looking like this. You see, after the helicopter escapes, Jean pushes Eric away, Eric tells her to leave, and Jean leaves. Seriously? After all that buildup of shock and suspense, It left on a flat note? Shit, seriously, who wrote this? The soundtrack score is quite amazing, which was composed by Hans Zimmer. Yes, the same man who composed the soundtrack score for The Lion King, Inception, and the Dark Knight trilogy. And I have to admit, it sounds freaking amazing. Now the climax. So after the X-Men, Jean, and Eric's brotherhood gets arrested by the US government and they've been taken on a train heading towards a containment facility. And I have to confess, it led to an awesome train sequence. In fact, this is my favorite action piece of the entire movie. It's creative, and Magneto seals the show with his magnetism. So after that incredible action sequence, it led to an even more awesome scene where Jean Grey has control of the Phoenix Force and uses it on the aliens. She took them out like they were nothing, man. She then faces off against Smith, lifts her up into the air, and blows her up along with her. Unfortunately, she didn't make it. Then we have our ending, where Hank is the new dean of Jean Grey's School for Gifted Children. Xavier is retired, and in the sky, you can see Jean Grey only as the Phoenix Force. Now let me tell you why that this ending of Dark Phoenix makes no sense. In Days of Future Past, after Xavier successfully changed the future, Logan sees himself in the school with Jean Grey alive in person and Xavier still as the dean of the school. So, what? So yes, this ending of Dark Phoenix has no connection to the ending of Days of Future Past whatsoever. Look, I'm not saying this film is really bad, like Batman and Robin bad. Cool party! I'm saying there are good things that I liked about the film. The action was terrific, the soundtrack score was amazing, and I admire Sophie Turner's performance. However, the film still doesn't hold up due to the lack of compelling characters, filler villains, and a convoluted narrative. Therefore, Dark Phoenix receives a 6.5 out of 10. But look on the bright side of things. As I mentioned before, this franchise has been active for 20 years since the release of X-Men in 2000. Ever since that film was released, it influenced other franchises that either didn't really work, The Mummy, or left a huge impact on audiences and critics. And who knows what Disney Studios has in store for us since they now have the rights to the X-Men now. So that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like in this video and subscribe to my channel, please. You're all welcome. You're all my children. And as always, I will see you guys at our next appointment. X-Men Forever.